And hello everyone again. This is Olga Media now, who growing into bigger production with Brad. He's CTO of Avaya. Is that, did I pronounce it right? Did I put some Russian accent into it?
Former CTO of Avaya. I left the company a week ago.
Oh, what's happened? Should I talk about it?
So it's time for me to move on to my next big adventure. Most of my career I've been a CEO and entrepreneur, and just spent 6 years at Avaya. Great experience, going through a lot of transformational work there, and everything from corporate strategy to M&A, consulting, the Avaya Labs research group, and built an entrepreneurial team called Emerging Products and Technology. And now, essentially, I'm out taking a look at opportunities for the next big thing.
So, do you have maybe a startup in mind already?
You never know. I've done that before. I've done a couple of startups, sort of $0 to $80 million. IPO with one of them on $3,000 of invested capital. So I've done some interesting things like that, and that could be a possibility.
So now tell me, you came all the way from San Jose to UP conference where it's like not too much lights, mostly candle lights here, and drove through the rain.
Yeah, I called the show's producer last night. He's in England, and I said, "You may have a little challenge tomorrow with your event." And he turned on the news and said, "Oh my God." But yeah, we got up early and drove through the rain, and got down here. Fortunately, I think all the schools being closed kept a lot of the people that would normally be on the roads at home. And you know, doing a keynote presentation by candlelight without your slides is a little different approach, but
So you didn't have any cheating paper? It was good
seemed to go
presentation.
okay.
Yeah, it was good
Thank you.
presentation. And did you use a 101 or 280? Because I was taking 280, and this was still a kind of
I took 101. My wife was texting me telling me stay off of 280.
Yeah, it was some flooding, but not that much. Going south, they had flooded zone, but
Okay.
Going north was luckily okay. So I thought that maybe 101 in some area would be flooded near Redwood City. Didn't happen.
A little hydroplaning here and there, but
You made it.
I took the SUV instead of the sports car because I figured that might be the case.
When you have choices, yes, that's easy. But coming to San Jose and living in Silicon Valley, were you born here?
Minnesota.
That's another location bringing very famous people from there as well. And is it because of the school, lots of field? What is this?
The reason that I'm out here?
Right.
Well, I spent most of my life in Minnesota, built a couple of companies there. Great place to do business, but you know, as you know, the core of the tech world is really Silicon Valley. And I came out here a few years ago for business, and you know, it's a great environment. You know, really enjoy working with all the different people. The weather's not so bad generally.
Right,
Maybe not
yes.
today, but
Well, we need the water to keep our resources of drinking water
that's important.
high, so we can deal with the weather.
Mm-hmm.
And from your experience in technology and Silicon Valley, what the best moments in your life you can share with our viewers and listeners?
Oh, geez. You know, it's one of the great things about technology is the ability to make big, profound changes to individuals, a business, an industry. And I sort of grew up with you know, sort of an entrepreneurial background. Both my parents were entrepreneurs, so to me it was sort of a natural condition. I actually got started in the entertainment industry when I was back in college. I did a unicycle act of all things, and when I was 17, I set the world record for the world's tallest unicycle, which was 51 feet high.
Oh my God, that's it.
And it was a little like the high-tech world in that suddenly there was an opportunity, somebody wanted to pay me to do it, but unfortunately the big event was in 2 weeks, so I built the unicycle, I hired the cranes, I rode the unicycle and set the world record in about a 2-week period of time. And to me, that's a little like what's happening today with cloud speed. You know, you're in a world where people dream up new ideas, new things that they want to do. People tell them they're crazy, and they demonstrate literally in a matter of weeks that they're capable of delivering a disruptive new application or capability that nobody could have imagined.
So maybe being entrepreneurial spirit, and that's being unicycle, show person, you help to bring solution from technology to the community and to the companies.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've got an engineering degree and that sort of background. My focus has always been on the business process, the business application. How do we transform companies and the benefits that people get from the technologies? It's easy to get lost in technology. You know, I talked in my keynote today about the difference between invention and innovation. All kinds of people are inventing all the time. You see lots of new IP all over the place. But a lot of that IP just sits there and nobody does anything interesting with it. It's the innovation around the business process and delivering the solution, the benefit to people that really starts to change the world. And whether that's in entertainment, healthcare, or in business. One of the things that I find just fascinating about the world of cloud today is that the capabilities that are being delivered from all these different sources are allowing people to come at it from the business process and the application down and not worry too much about the technology underneath. And that's where I think we're going to get the disruption and the acceleration.
So we have a lot of startups in Silicon Valley who struggle to have money. You work for the companies who have the money. And probably, as I see by interviewing other people, it's not always easy to get the money for innovative technologies and ideas, even in the companies who has the money.
Well, you know, it's that's certainly the case. I mean, when you're inside of a large corporation, there's a lot of, especially public corporations, there's a lot of pressure around you know, short-term results and that sort of thing, which tend to make it difficult sometimes to invest in some of the big ideas that are going to take a long time to come. Again, what's happening with cloud and the cloud architecture is open source, as people are able to move faster from an innovation perspective on top of those technologies. I think that'll help both big companies as well as small companies, because you don't have to make multi-year bets like you once did in a lot of cases.
It used to be 10 years ago when you have to buy expensive servers, IT professionals. Now you can get cloud and it's very affordable, and a lot of companies can have business running cheaper.
Sure, in the communication and collaboration space, you know, I grew up, I built a partner business and I built a software business around the technologies. And, you know, when I got into it, you pretty much had to be willing to buy $500,000 worth of equipment and hire a bunch of specialized people. And then you pretty much had to build your solution from the lowest level all the way up to the business application. Big investments, long period of time, and you know, difficult for an entrepreneurial business to show early progress, to get the money and that sort of thing, as you talked about. One of the things that I've always sort of done in my own entrepreneurial ventures is I've looked for an opportunity to get my customers to fund what I'm doing. And so if you can get to a certain point where you can start to deliver some meaningful value to customers, particularly in the enterprise, you can start to attract funding because you're going to solve a major problem for someone. You're going to do it within a time horizon. You've got a track record where you've convinced them that you're going to deliver. And you know, that can be one of the ways that you get rolling. I mean, it may not, you know, these days it may not be enough, but you know, to me it's an important part of getting to the point where you're sort of proving out a model with those first couple of beachhead customers, and then you can attract the capital more easily to go and really scale and grow the business from there.
Now, you mentioned in your keynote speech today that healthcare should be doing much better if technology would be available and usable right away in clinical trials, clinical trials, helping more patients to be healthier, be alive these days. So would you please tell a little bit more for those who view in our program?
Sure. You know, the business models and the acceleration of the velocity that's happening in the tech world with business applications, that sort of whole approach is going to be applied to other industries as well. It's going to be applied to the entertainment industry, it's going to be applied to the healthcare industry. In the healthcare industry, the impact on the human condition could be profound. If you take a look at sort of the way the world's been set up historically with sort of all these clinical trials, teams of researchers work in silos. They don't share information between each other. And in fact, the clinical trial system is set up so that even after you get through sort of a 1-year-long phase 1 trial, you spend $1 million and you have something that looks really good and it's proven it's not going to kill people, you're going to spend $1 billion in 10 years to get to the next point. And during that 10 years, nobody gets any information about how effective the treatment is. Turn that model upside down and apply the same kinds of concepts that we're doing today with open source, big data, and the cloud. And now let's say you take a brain tumor treatment or a pancreatic cancer treatment, something that if it could extend someone's life by a few months is a big deal relative to those kinds of patients that might have less than a year to live. And if instead of it taking 10 years to get that treatment to market, you're literally able to get it to market to anybody who wants to have it after that phase 1 trial. Well, you've spent $1 million instead of $1 billion. You've made it available in a year instead of 10 years. And even more important than that, everybody has access to it, and you start to get thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pieces of patient data available to researchers years ahead of time, so that they can all start to take a look at what can be learned from that. Oftentimes, some of the most interesting things they learn will be in the anomalies. Why did this person get cured and that person not get cured? Well, maybe it's because they were taking some other drug for some other purpose that when they interacted together had this big impact on this cancer. So I think, when you take a look at sort of building a model like that, where instead of it being a secret, private clinical trial process, it's more of a contribute your big data, everybody has access to it, nobody's forced to take a placebo, and the information becomes available. The trials are so much cheaper, so there's a lot more trials, there's a lot more treatment. The pace of innovation is going to go up exponentially. You literally can have what would take 100 years to collect in the current clinical trial system in terms of data, you can collect in 6 to 12 months.
That's good. Now we have to reach some of the gates and keep them open for it, because it would be not easy to go through maybe those gates, like pharmaceutical companies who gets lots of money for treatment of the patients, but at the same time they should look that they can save money by not getting to 10 years of $1 billion spent on their clinical research.
Competition goes like that as well.
Yes, and competition, availability, and it doesn't mean that you can go into personal data of the clients. You can put their identity hidden.
Anonymized data.
Anonymized data, and still do predictive analytics or analytical research of the data. Used to be preclinical scientist in immunology, microbiology, so I know how we supposed to hide the data, hide in our lab journals, and not share with anyone, because those journals supposed to stay intact and no pieces would share it with any others, because what if it would be forged or something? We didn't want that for research.
Well, if you're in immunology, there was a recent Nobel Prize winner from the immunology field a couple of years ago. I forget his name off the top of my head, you may know it, but
at that time I made my switch to media.
But one of the interesting things about this is that he had pancreatic cancer, and he stayed alive for 5 years. And the way that he stayed alive for 5 years with pancreatic cancer is that basically he was treating himself. And he was taking a look at all the trials being run by all of his friends around the world, and he would keep track of the cancer markers in his blood. And when he'd start to see them getting out of line, he'd send his note out to his friends and say, send me a sample of whatever seems to be working the best, and he'd take them all.
Right.
And 6 months later, he'd do it again. And in the meantime, he was dodging the FDA, who was wondering what he was doing with all these, sample treatments. And he managed to stay alive 5 years with a disease that normally kills people in 5 months. And in fact, he ended up winning he's the only person that's ever won the Nobel Prize posthumously. And it's because they didn't know that he had died 3 days before they awarded him the Nobel Prize.
Wow. Well, because FDA would not necessarily allow patients to actually use clinical trial treatment.
That's true.
Not always available.
That's true, but if it's been through phase 1 and proven to do no harm, which is what phase 1's all about, and if you have a disease that's going to almost certainly kill you within a year or 2 years, why shouldn't you be given the option of taking that treatment?
Especially if you want that treatment and you want to live and do anything possible to survive.
Exactly.
When you have that chance to live, why not give people a chance to live? Or why do you want secretly give them placebo, saying, yes, you are in clinical trials, and then the person could be having placebo without knowing that he given placebo, including nurses and doctors giving him the medication.
Right.
Only pharmaceutical companies will know that.
There's a new film coming out in February that'll be premiered in London and New York, and it's about medical professionals who are glioblastoma or brain tumor survivors. And all of these medical professionals were told that they had 6 months, a year to live, and the people in the film have all been alive 10 to 20 years. And they're talking about what they had to do in their journey to basically break all the rules, to be able to take the treatments that they decided were the best to take in combination to keep themselves alive. And so that kind of thing, if you allow people with those kinds of diseases, anybody, access to these treatments, and they have access to the information to see what's working the best right now, and what combinations of things are working, we're going to accelerate the cures, the research, and there's plenty of examples of the people that have broken the rules getting those kinds of results from doing it.
And that's all available because of the technology and cloud services, availability of the data, and analytical process.
Absolutely. If you go back to the, when the clinical trial system was first put together, you take a look at the early 60s. There wasn't computer systems available to do big data analytics. They said, okay, we need to have controlled groups of people. We want to have blonde-haired, blue-eyed Norwegians that are left-handed that we're going to study. Well, if instead of having data on 100 people, you have data on 100,000 people, you can create whatever sample you want out of that data.
Right.
Computers and the cloud completely changed the game.
And some patients can be having habits which maybe children don't have, and maybe it's what saves the child, but what if it's adult took some medicine and alcohol or cigarettes along the treatment, and that interferes the results.
Or makes it better.
Yeah, or made it better, who knows? And here we are, without knowing the data, untimely matter, and sharing the data, sometimes it's not helping.
Yeah.
It's taken longer time. By the time we reach the process, it's already
A decade at a time.
gone and not helpful most of the time. Or helpful, again, like some of the medicine get off the market as well, because if the people would receive data, or scientists or doctors, then they will know that that medicine actually was more harmful than helpful. So we have to wait like 5-10 years to see like, wow, so many people die already.
Yeah.
So now, your education, what helped you with your professional career? Did your education help you?
Well, I've got a undergrad in mechanical engineering. I've got an MBA in marketing. I would say though that probably all that's useful, but the entrepreneurial experience is some of the most valuable. It sort of heightens your senses when you're, you start a company, especially if you bootstrap it and you've got all of your life savings in it, you're paying yourself a relatively small amount of money. You're busy, you've got an idea, you're trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. You're trying to learn about sales and pricing and marketing. You're trying to learn about the development process, the support process. How do you keep this customer happy? You know, your nerves are exposed, and you're hypersensitive to every possible aspect of business that you can imagine, and you learn things from that you just don't learn when you're in a narrow job description, or if it might not be till much later in your career. So when I think about when I was running around the Midwest doing my unicycle act, you quickly learn that you're no good unless you're from somewhere else. It's a lot like the consulting business.
Right.
And then you learn that the value of what you do varies dramatically. It's not about what's your cost. It's about when the agent calls you and says, how much to do this gig in Chicago, and you say, what's it for? And if it's the McDonald's corporate executive strategic planning event, the price is dramatically different than if it's the Bozo Circus TV show or the Boy Scout Blue and Gold Banquet, even though the work done might be largely similar. You learn things about pricing and value that you can apply in all kinds of ways, whether it's in big companies or whether it's in future entrepreneurial endeavors.
And from all of your life experience working from small act to bigger acts in life and in business, what was the most helpful skills in challenges, experience? What was helpful?
Well, I think one of the most important things is working with people. I find some of the most successful and high-performing teams I've ever worked with tend to be made up of an eclectic group of folks that have strengths here, there, and over here, and you put them together and you get magic. And if you can learn how to do that, you don't have to be an expert on everything all of them do, and in fact, if you do, you're just going to limit yourself. But you need to know enough so that you got a good sense of smell, and you can tell whether what people are doing makes sense or not. You need to inspect, but you also need to trust. And I've done a lot in building organizations with a lot of people would say I give them a lot of autonomy and allow them to take the initiative, but kind of manage them to get to where we want to get to. And when you do that, you get the best out of people because they love what they're doing, they want to contribute, they want to be a part of the team. You have them doing the things they're the best at. And when you get that right collection together, like I said, you can just get magic.
Now, for the companies itself, what was the most helpful to make the company successful, growing in life, and from your experience?
Well, it comes back down to some common business principles, right? You're looking for a big, hairy problem to solve that's got a big ROI around it if you solve it. And to me, when you go after something like that, if you really want to change the game, you've got to take a step back and have a much bigger picture perspective than people typically do when they're creating new products, new technologies. So for me, one of the things that I coach my teams to do when they're working in the enterprise world, for example, is to start with the CEO goals that their customers have and understand how those goals flow down through the organization into the various areas that our teams might be working with on a day-to-day basis, so that not only are they solving the problem as described by the person they call on on a regular basis, but they understand what problems that person's being asked to solve by their boss and their boss's boss and the CEO. Out of that, oftentimes comes the more profound changes, the bigger changes that you can make. I look for those opportunities where it's not just about cost savings, it's about new revenue. It's not just about doing something better, it's about re-engineering the business process and completely changing the game. That to me is very, very exciting. It's very fulfilling, and financially it can be very rewarding.
Now, do you do anything for fun? You're so excited about businesses.
Oh, absolutely. I work hard and I play hard. As you can imagine from the unicycling world.
That's why I definitely would like to know what you're doing now these days.
Well, myself and my family can be pretty adventurous at times. I do a lot of scuba diving, and I enjoy underwater photography, so a lot of fun taking pictures there. If we could have seen the slides in the presentation today, you would have seen a couple pictures of one of my sons who had climbed 4 of the 7 summits by the time he was 20 years old. You know, you start talking about sort of stripping away all of the noise in life when you're standing on the top of Denali, and you know, you've been up there for 20 days, and you're trying to you know, get those last couple hundred feet to the summit. So I've been living vicariously through my son with that, although I did teach them to rock climb when they were 6 years old. And we did things like Devil's Tower together when they were 12
But
years
it's
old.
also entrepreneurial spirit, because when you climb and you're on top of the mountain, nobody gonna clap you and say, hey, come on, go, it's 200 feet left, come on, go, go. It's inside, spirit from inside saying, I have to get there, it's not enough oxygen, not enough food, water, it's cold, and they still have to go from their own well. So that's a big
It's absolutely true, and key decisions about, you know, that are not always easy to make when you're you know, up 20,000+ feet in the air. My son, who does the climbing, had to stop about 50 feet short of the summit on Aconcagua to save somebody's life as a 19-year-old kid. You know, so he's learned life lessons, and of course he's an entrepreneur now. So he started a web design business a year ago. So he's applying those kind of skills to that. I've got another son who loves to do long trip canoeing. He did a 50-day canoe trip in the Arctic Circle.
Oh,
And
that's the right time to do it.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it's melted, it wouldn't be there anymore. So
Still
that's
pretty
another
pretty
good
cold
decision.
up there. And then I have a daughter who's in cloud sales, actually.
Wow.
She works for Salesforce.com.
Yes, so that's around the corner.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they all have education, or some are small ones still,
Mhm.
but very entrepreneurial, that's for sure.
So they're all doing that. I'm doing my scuba diving. I do a lot of motorcycling and dirt biking. And we have fun.
Great.
Learning how to kite surf now. That's my new thing.
So to our listeners and viewers, if you will have wishes, what it will be?
Wishes. Well, one big wish is I'd like to see the economy continue to do well, so that we don't have a bubble burst or take a setback. It seems like we've got a couple of years ahead of us anyway, where the good times continue to roll. I think it's important that we're all building fundamental value in the things that we're doing today, because that'll carry us through you know, the inevitable ups and downs. And you know, I think we're in an extremely exciting time, and you know, I look forward to just watching the pace of change accelerate, enabled by all the new things that are happening with cloud and open source, as we talked about today.
And as long as it's good for the community using it in proper ways, that's very helpful for everyone.
We're going to change not just business, we're going to change humanity out of all this.
Yeah, it's like disruptive technology, and just do good from the bottom of your heart. And when you go on top of the mountains, don't forget about your team in the snow. That's a good lesson right there. So thank you so much, and that's Olga Media and Brett.
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you.